Allow me to define and explain. Leonardo's milestone years, 1478 to 1481. Because Leonardo was wont to avoid providing dates to entries in his notebooks, it took specialists to reconstruct the chronology of events in and surrounding his life. But from 1478 to 1481, the following events that transpired remain chronologically sketchy. In fact, there remain two partial gaps in his whereabouts and activities. The first was off and on from 1478 to 81, and the second period was circa 1500. Where was he, and what was he doing during these calendrical sections of these sketchy periods? Scattered through the first gap, 1478 to 81, we know he was introduced to Ludovico Sforza, who was to soon thereafter become the Duke of Milan and one of Leonardo's most important patrons, and who was, with his father, central to the Order of the Crescent. On record. We know it was his boyhood friend at the Toscanelli Academy, Amerigo Vespucci, who introduced Leonardo to the future Duke during this period, and we know that Amerigo went on to provide the world's westernmost continents with their monikers of North, Central, and South America, and returned to Europe and met with Leonardo when he undoubtedly described his experiences to his boyhood companion. Descriptions to which Leonardo conspicuously never refers in his notebooks. Or doesn't he? C. We know he painted the Adoration of the Magi during this period and that he accepted Ludovico Sforza's invitation to move to Milan. D. We know that he all of a sudden introduced his own invention of the style of painting called Chiaroscuro in his 1478 work Benoit Madonna. Like his later style of sfumato, itself in many ways related to chiaroscuro, and this will be fully defined shortly. This invention gives a broader range of luminance than is seen in reality. This use of light and dark, which is what chiaroscuro means in Italian, allows for the definition of 3D shape, a style of shading that dominates brightness more than color. But it is the sudden emergence of this chiaroscuro amidst his disappearances that is the point here. What do the two have to do with each other? This happens again in association with his Mona Lisa 2 decades later, when he does seem, for an otherwise innocuously short period, to vanish, only to return with the refinement of this technique known as sfumato. Leonardo defines sfumato as being, quote, without lines or borders, in a manner of smoke or beyond the focus plane, end quote. Both of these techniques of sfumato and chiaroscuro actually depict a worldview of all things, where from one vantage the distinctions of light from dark and dark from light are blurred, while simultaneously from another vantage are exactly delineated. You will soon see how this touches on the religion and philosophical systems of Christianity, Buddhism, and most notably of Zoroastrianism, the Jedi worldview of the dark side and the light side of cosmic reality. You will see that the mystery of the Mona Lisa pales before the shadows surrounding Leonardo's favorite student, he nicknamed Zoroastro, and takes full active expression in the certifiably real Order of the Crescent. Zoroastro is the Italian pronunciation of Zoroaster. He would otherwise be saying Zoroaster. So Zoroastro and other monikers. Leonardo had a habit of giving monikers to his favorite students. One of them, Tommaso di Giovanni Massini, was given the cryptic name of Zoroastro, the Italian spelling and sounding of the name of the founder of the ancient religion of Zoroastrianism. The ancient prophet was also known as, in the regional languages where Zoroastrianism spread, Zarathustra and Zardusht. Leonardo drew the nickname of his other favored student, Giacomo Caprati, from the Koran of all places, and that moniker was Salai. The universally recognized world's greatest Leonardo scholar, Carlo Pedretti, published my decipherment of the nickname Salai in 2009. Given the Zoroastrian-themed masterpiece Leonardo painted in 1481, titled Adoration of the Magi, and given the philosophically Zoroastrian style of painting he invented and called Chiaroscuro, and second Zoroastrian style he refined termed sfumato, and further, given his links to the secret society cabal infused with Zoroastrian motives and motifs called the Order of the Crescent, we may begin to understand why he gave Tommaso the moniker of Zoroastro. The very name Tommaso means twin, Thomas, and the cosmogony of Zoroastrianism is based on legendary twins, at least in part. Tommaso was to become the famous alchemist in his own right and an intrinsic player in this code of codes. Was Leonardo extending the traditions surrounding doubting Thomas, who was one of the disciples of Jesus who bore a name that 3 times refers to twin, one Thomas Didymus? Or was he releasing the element of the code of codes in an overt way, drawing a nexus to Zoroastrianism? Or was it both? Thomas the Doubter, after all, just as Leonardo painted himself as the doubter in his Adoration of the Magi, and just as the Adoration of the Magi was intended to embed the restoration of Zoroastrianism as the cradle, the nativity of Christianity, accordingly Tommaso was renamed with Zoroastro to restore the faith itself. Thomas the Doubter, according to virtually all Christian sources, ventured onto India after the death of Jesus, and on his way met with the Zoroastrian Magi priests, parallel to the way Pythagoras, on his way to Egypt, met with the rabbis. Why? Thomas is believed to have been one way or another martyred at Milapur or Tamil Nadu at St. Thomas Mount in India. Hindus, Muslims, and Christians worship at this mount to this day. The twin theme of the life of Jesus and of Leonardo is overt and is essential to the emergence of Judaism itself, as much as it is a principal element in Zoroastrianism and its theological predecessors and affiliates like Zurvanism, a subject that will be addressed in a feature film of this film précis is introducing. Jacob, also known as Israel, and Esau were twins who opposed each other in the womb and out of the womb. The Bible clearly depicts them as good and bad. In Leonardo's painting titled The Virgin with St. John the Baptist and St. Anne, as well as in his Last Supper, this twin theme is salient, where you find 2 virtually identical Christs. To repeat, the twin phenomenon is a central tenet of Zoroastrianism. The extent to which some of the Augustinian order of priests were involved with elements of Zoroastrianism or its Manichaean spawn's focus on this twin Thomas mysticism, we may never know. That is, some of us will never know. But we do know Augustine himself was a practicing Zoroastrian Manichaean on record for at least 7 to 9 years. And this Manichaean faith was an early form of Christianity that outright plied Zoroastrian tenets as taught by its founder Mani. That Augustinians asked Leonardo to paint for their altar the Adoration of the Magi seems to me to be intrinsic to this decode. It was not for no reason the Augustinians, with the Jesuits, were repeatedly banished from European monarchical and papal states across the centuries, that they protected each other, and were both protected by the Sulpician order made famous in the Da Vinci Code book and film, as featured in the film facsimile of the Church of St. Sulpice itself. The film was not allowed to be shot inside Église St. Sulpice, but my documentary, La Pièce Exilis, was. And I am in possession of yet another set of secrets about Église St. Sulpice, about which the select Sulpician priests in Paris, with whom I worked in company with the Canadian Governor General's assistant Janine Troubet, with whom I traveled to Paris first in 1986, are fully aware, well, almost fully aware. And before venturing into what the great Canadian Aboriginal Métis revolutionary David Lewis Real, or shall I say Louis David Real, had to do with the Sulpicians. A few closing notes on these three Catholic orders is essential to this decode. Martin Luther was an Augustinian priest, a member of one of the two orders that protected the Jesuits, the other being the Sulpicians. And yet Luther is seen as the ultimate Reformation iconoclast, while Ignatius Loyola, founder of the same Jesuits the Augustinians protected, is seen as the ultimate counter-Reformation icon. So who wrote that history? Unless we forget the evolution geneticist famous for his Mendelian genetic school was the Augustinian priest Gregor Mendel. Moreover, the discoverer of Homo erectus, also known as Beijing Man, was the great Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Both are hardly the works and accomplishments of so-called creationists, and both are in fact from two of three of the trinity of renegade priesthoods, Augustinians, Jesuits, and Sulpicians. The final note in this section on the identified Catholic trinity of priesthoods is this. There are two closely related secrets well kept by the inner circles of the Jesuits, Augustinians, and Sulpician orders, as well as cultivated by the Order of the Crescent, and one of the primary reasons the Order of the Crescent had and has so much of a permeating Zoroastrian Manichaean element. Ignatius Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit order, is on record stating that God told him the secret of the Holy Spirit, a secret that does not square with who or what Christians are expected to believe the Holy Spirit is. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a secret. The second secret is about the origin of St. Augustine's mother's name, Monica. Because St. Augustine was an indigenous Berber, the early Christian revisionists and reconstructionists argue that the name Monica is a Berber name or title, given that they otherwise claim they can't find the name's origin. But all Berber scholars agree that this is not so, that Monica is not even a Berber word. I'm a member of the scientific committee CNPLET, serving the government of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, and serving as well as the Algerian Ministry of Education. CNPLET is also the primary center for the teaching of Berber in Algeria, a language that recently gained the status enjoyed by Arabic and French. An obvious recognition long overdue, given that Berbers comprise upwards of 25% of the Algerian population. I was appointed to this Berber-mandated committee by Professor Abdelrazak Dourari, the past professor of linguistics at the Sorbonne in Paris, and linguistics professor at leading universities in Algeria itself. I can state on authority that with Augustine and his mother Monica being Algerian Berbers, if Augustine's mother didn't practice Manichaeism, she could and would not have called Monica in the 4th and 5th centuries AD, been called Monica in those centuries in which they lived. The name Monica is a title deriving from the Semitic Assyrian and Classical Syriac language, and specifically from the word Manichaea, meaning living Mani. The H in Manichaea is pronounced with a ch-like sound. Manichaea is also the etymological origin of the word Manichaean itself. And this goes to the two prophet figures following Jesus who associated with the Holy Spirit through their mothers, Mani, who in the 3rd century created Manichaeism by fusing Christianity with Zoroastrianism and Buddhism, proclaimed himself and was proclaimed by his followers to be the comforter Jesus foretold in the Gospel of John, and Muhammad, who in the Quran is also identified as the comforter Jesus foretold in said Gospel. The comforter Jesus foretold is identified as the Holy Spirit in all of Christianity. Therefore, would Augustine's mother, Monica, have the name or title Living Mani if she and her son had renounced Manichaeism as Christian revisionists would have us believe? And just as Amina, the mother of Muhammad, is believed by Muslims to have been visited by the angel Gabriel and told she was pregnant with the Comforter, resulting in the name Mohammed, the etymology of the name and the word construction of Mohammed, meaning contains Ahmed, aka the Comforter, according to the Quran. This is parallel to the name Monica, meaning living Mani, particularly if Augustine's mother thought she was carrying a second iteration of Mani. In this case, the reincarnated prophet of Manichaeism, and thereby gaining the title Monica. At that time, reincarnation was still a belief in Christianity and was referred to as the transmigration of the soul. This comprises the nature of the second secret. And let's not forget that Manichaeism was a Zoroastrian spin-off. It came from Zoroastrianism, once fusing with Buddhism and Christianity, early Christianity. The Order of the Crescent. It was only 5 days prior to his death on November 27, 2015, when the wife of centrally pivotal geopolitical uber businessman Maurice Strong called me for a few reasons and in the process requested my decipherment of what I'm calling the Code of Codes. I opened this précis with a quote from the same Maurice Strong, consisting of his reply to Glenn Beck's accusation that he was, quote, the world's most dangerous man. Strong's statement appears in The Guardian, June 23, 2010, in the context of an interview conducted by him by Leo Hickman. Here we have the man Glenn Beck dubbed the world's most dangerous man, actually acknowledging the existence of the so-called Illuminati. And not once but twice. If you view on my YouTube channel the video titled Illuminati and the Buff, you'll see that I too have been mistaken for a high-level illuminist. It seems no one is spared when a certain segment of conspiracy theorists decide to purge their tiny world of those they perceive as Illuminati boogeymen, be their victims humble paupers like me or paragons of global power like Maurice Strong. But the Illuminati, in its most recent iteration, founded in 1776 in Bavaria by Adam Weishaupt, the chair of canon law at the Jesuit Ingolstadt University, the same Illuminati you hear about today, was absorbed by another secret society not long after Weishaupt became a registered Freemason in 1777, after his initiation into the Masonic lodge Theodor zum Guten Rat at Munich. To be precise, Weishaupt was first initiated into Freemasonry in 1774, 3 years before he founded the Bavarian Illuminati. The actual name of the Cabal of Cabals, though, today as always, is simply the Order of the Crescent. It is in Leonardo's Adoration of the Magi several times symbolically depicted. It's listed as one of its members on record in 1448, one Francesco Sforza, the father of the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza, who was one of Leonardo's greatest patrons. Another of its members at that time was René d'Anjou, who had been a duke and the titular king of Sicily and Naples. This order was not only intergenerational, but international and indeed intermillennial. When René d'Anjou continued the order, its name was also the Order of the Ship and Double Crescent. With Sicily being so frequently associated with this seagoing order, and for other reasons, history has recorded it as being founded in 1268 by the King of Sicily, Charles I. So we have the order on record claimed to have been founded in 1268 by the King of Sicily and Naples, Charles I, and by the titular King of Sicily in 1448. Sicily looms large in the machinations of this order of orders, practicing the Code of Codes. But King Charles I was the brother of the ruthless King Louis IX, who ordered the 7th and 8th Crusades against the Christian Gnostic Cathars, also known as Albigensians, Jews, and Muslims. We have a truly Zoroastrian split of light from dark in these brothers, with Louis on the side of darkness, even though the name Louis means light, and Charles on the side of light. More recently, we find yet another king, in line with the founding kings of Sargon, who are associated with the order's origins, but this time being Ottoman Sultan Selim III, who knighted Admiral Horatio Nelson as a member of the order in 1799. And another king of sorts, the founder of the Republic of Turkey, Kemal Ataturk, a full-fledged Freemason supported by an entire world of Freemasonry,